great ones are corrupted, the small ones imitate them. The ambitious spread tribal, regionalist and racist ideas and try and build a force to support them in their goals. Veterans imprisoned in routine, unable to acquire a new way of thinking, new methods of work. These false veterans see in the new cadres competitors who will dislodge them from their little firms. So that's quite amazing in the time of state capture. And I've just grabbed 3, and that's not my trip, but there's beautiful quotes in this book. And you see what that struggle was about at that time and how it remains totally valid today. Also, of course, when you see targeted bombings of buses of school children in Yemen today, and 500,000 children facing cholera and starvation, you just wonder what is going on in this world. And I think Samora's writings connect the 80s with today, the demands of today, and that's almost what we're missing in South Africa. The kind of dialogue intergenerationally between people who are questioning rightly today and people who questioned in the 80s. And so I hope this book will help people to become a little more knowledgeable and a little more empathetic as human beings. So I'd like to launch it officially and ask Ahmed Kathrada and Josina to come and accept the first copies from us. We've already got one from the Maputo launch last week. And then, as I said, we're going to give those 5 out. Very quickly to end with Albie. In the few years I've worked with him, I've got a sense of what's been important for him in life. And without question, the 11 years Albie spent in Mozambique have been amongst the ones that have been most formative for him as a human being. He learned from close up, living through a revolution and seeing the strengths and the weaknesses of a process like that. But he loved the sensibilities of the people and their generosity. And he said he's never felt richer than he was in Mozambique, which is not a wealthy country. And that is where he says, in a genuine way, that he became truly African, connecting back to Africa. And there's a beautiful piece in the soft vengeance of a freedom fighter after the bombing. And Albie talks about the beautiful empathy and support that he received in Mozambique after that. And at the end of, I don't know if it was how long it was, 2 weeks maybe, he had to go to London for treatment. And he describes the ambulance going past the zinc houses of Polana neighborhood, the factory district, and the Euro Square with the huge curving murals. And finally, he goes onto the tarmac next to the plane, and it's all lights at night, dark, and lights shining at him. And 2 nurses carry him up the plane into the cabin, and he raises, I'm wheeled out of the back of the ambulance and onto the tarmac of the airport. It is strange and pleasant to be in the open night air. The sky is dark, but the airport building is lit by bright spotlights. I raise my head a little, lift my arm in a final farewell, and wave towards the balcony. The air is warm and the lights are confusing. Suddenly, amazingly and beautifully, there are hundreds and hundreds of arms waving back to me, and I feel the cantata of love and spontaneous communion. My friends, my colleagues are there, but also hundreds of strangers. It is a beautiful hallucination as I raise my arm in a last farewell for my mummy-like body, all those arms swaying and rolling against the glare of lights. The nurses pause at the top of the staircase. Kanimambo Maputo, thank you until we meet again. And then they carry me into the plane. That's how I'll be left Mozambique, but not before experiencing the internationalism, the sense of universal struggle, and the warmth of the Mozambican people. Thanks very much. Enjoy the book.
Thank you, Dr. Olinda. I think it's really important, and we're thankful for the work that you're doing in telling the untold stories. We truly appreciate it. Before I welcome the next speaker to the podium, I see a few empty seats. So if there's an empty seat next to you, please move towards the center so that we open up the sides so some of our guests can sit down. Thank you. Now to deliver the keynote for this evening, it is my great pleasure to invite Justice Albie Sachs to the podium. He really requires no introduction, but I would like to note that he wrote the introduction to the Samora Machel book. He has also been a patron of numerous memory projects over the years and continues to challenge my generation to reckon with the past, both responsibly and creatively. Justice Albie Sachs.
Andre ended with the story of my arm. I'm going to begin with the story of my arm. It's when I had an arm. I had a long arm. This is my short arm. And I'm in exile in England, and we're working hard, we're campaigning, we have ANC meetings, usually in a Labour Party borough town hall. I still remember the windows would be broken. In winter I'd be wearing a heavy coat. You'd get up, clack, 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 not nice, warm, comfortable seats like you're sitting on. And somebody would say, comrades, we will now sing the national anthem. And there might be 40, 50 of us, sadly 50, 49 right arms would go up into the air. And my arm didn't go up. This arm, this cheeky arm, didn't go up. It's like if an arm can have a mind of its own, this arm had a mind of its own. I was so affected by the solitary confinement, the sleep deprivation, going to exile. My arm didn't feel it could go up. I'm teaching at Dar es Salaam University. I go down to Maputo. It's September 24th, is it? The day of the launch of the armed struggle. Would you like to go to the Mashaba Stadium? I say, yes. There may be 60,000 people there. And they say, look, there's Samora. And I see him far, far away. And he comes to the microphone. Says, Lebombo Mountains, long live people united from Plymouth to Maputo. And 60,000 arms go up into the air, including my arm. I got my courage back in Mozambique. I owe Mozambique my courage. I was a little disappointed when I saw this enlarged picture because on the cover, I wasn't looking very carefully. I thought maybe I'm in that audience. But there are too many trees there. That's not the central square in Maputo. So I can't claim maybe I was in that audience. But it does remind me of those days. Work in England, anti-apartheid work, was really meaningful and great. We had marvelous comrades and friends there. The work really signified. But it wasn't the same as being on African soil, hearing an African leader, feeling so in touch. And we would go on a Saturday afternoon, or Sunday afternoon, it was purely voluntary, in our thousands. And we looked forward to it, because it wasn't just a political address. I don't even think of it as a political address. It was an occasion. It's like being in a moment in history, an interaction with the leadership now, not saying the Central Committee has adopted the following resolution, reading A, B, C, D, E, but stories, songs. Guess which president of South Africa learned to sing at the microphone, maybe moving even a little more than Samora moved. But that idea of political address being in that African style and way, very serious, very thoughtful, very deep, and not dumbing down to the audience and not coming out with just simple ideas, but conversing and engaging and connecting. And some of the things I remember to this day, not huge things. Samora saying that there are some people in Africa who are very proud they were colonized by the British and not by the Portuguese, that they had a superior class of oppressor. And that was true. Something of that disdain that the Anglo-Saxons had for Portugal somehow got transferred even to the colonies and the liberation struggles in Africa. I remember him saying, quite often in different ways, there's some people in Africa, they don't mind being eaten by a local lion as long as they're not eaten by a foreign tiger. Now he's summing up that whole idea of the class divisions in Africa, the new predatory exploiters. If they're black, it's okay, they can exploit us. And he's challenging that. I can remember him saying something that seemed also very trivial, but sometimes these trivial things signify, little banal things, a huge amount. He said, why is it if you go into a restaurant today, you can't get decent service? When the Portuguese troops were here, we used to serve them with courtesy and respect. And he would end up by saying, the problem is the enemy is camping in our heads. The enemy is camping in our heads. The enemy is camping in our heads. We have underdevelopment in our heads. We don't respect our own people. Now these are all statements that are transferable in time and transferable in country. Very important for me, for all of us, for our generation. It was such a vindication also of our struggle in South Africa, of the Freedom Charter, of people in other movements, not just the ANC fighting for liberation, but their vision of a South Africa that would truly belong to all of them. And Samora was so strong on that, on internationalism, on the just struggle of the South African people, so strong on rights for women. The day I was blown up was the day of Mozambican. The day that Graca Machel, who had demanded inside Frelimo that she had a right to bear arms, and there were what they call the reactionaries in Frelimo at the time, said no, women don't bear arms. Our culture says men do the fighting and women help the men. And she said no. She said we have a right to take part in the noblest endeavors of our people. A whole series of things like that. What to do with captured Portuguese soldiers and the reactionaries saying they came to kill us, we kill them. And Samora and the others saying no. They are children of peasants. We educate them. Even if we are short of food, we share our food with them. And one day they will be our best ambassadors. The whole theme we used to learn about who is the enemy. And the enemy is not a race or people, it's a system of oppression, exploitation. it was so important to prevent a new class of exploiters from emerging, but also to seek friends and support and allies from everybody all over the world. I see, I'm going to call you Little Graca Machel, after Samora was killed. There's a Mozambican dance group, a Chilean ballerina, noted ballerina who fled from Pinochet, came to Mozambique. She set up a dance school. Her daughter was one of the dancers there, and they put on a special dance, Canto para Samora, Song for Samora. And it was the first 5 minutes of Mozart's Requiem. And here were these young kids, overwhelmingly black African, some of them from such harsh backgrounds. The dance school had to give them bread, as well as education, as well as teaching them jazz and African dancing and forms of ballet. All of those things were there. And there was this exquisite dancing. And Josina, I look at you now, like they do in the movies, and I see that little child dancing, doing these beautiful, very modern style movements to Mozart's beautiful music in honor of Samora Machel. I was asked by the reporter earlier today something about the question mark over the death of Samora Machel. There's no question mark in my head. There's an exclamation mark in my head. A week before that plane crashed, and remember the plane crashed because of a beacon, a false beacon. That's established. That's not a theory. It's not a speculation. It's established. There was a false beacon that drew that plane in to crash, as it happened on South African soil. The week before that happened, Rob Davis, who's now a Minister of Trade and Industry, Elvis Mangezi, who's living in retirement now, I think he was from an important area, and myself, we used to meet every week and pass on to Jacob Zuma, who was our chief representative there at the time, information to go to Oliver Tambo on the political situation in Mozambique. Not secret stuff about military maneuvers, anything of that kind, the war in Zimbabwe, just political information. And Rob used to listen to current affairs program on South African news, I think SABC at 7:15 or 7:45 every morning. And he said, comrades, I've noticed a signal change in the whole approach being adopted. Until this week, the line used to be, we have to save Samora Machel, get him out of the clutches of the communists. The line yesterday or this morning when I listened was completely different. Samora Machel is the enemy of peace and progress in Southern Africa, and his power must be broken. That was a week before the plane came down. So we had absolutely no doubt that plane was brought down by South African security, maybe with collusion from elsewhere. Samora died for us, for our liberation. He was on a mission to get the frontline states to strengthen their solidarity, to overcome attempts by South Africa through intimidation, through bribery, corruption, whatever it might be, to weaken the opposition to apartheid. And he died. And I feel strongly about our connection with Mozambique. The bomb put in my car by South African security, and this was acknowledged at the TRC hearings, it didn't kill me. It killed 2 Mozambicans walking by. To this day, Mozambique is paying the price of the civil war that was invoked because of the support for our liberation struggle, for the damage done to the economy, hundreds of thousands, millions of refugees, child soldiers, the devastation on that country resulting from the fact that Frelimo, Samora Machel, the leadership there, backed our struggle. They were forced to make concessions at Nkomati. But overwhelmingly, and even after the concessions, they stood behind us. And it is totally unacceptable that people crossing the borders, coming to work in South Africa today, should be treated as foreigners in our country, as unwelcome in our country. We were welcomed, and the price they paid was enormous. We were welcomed in our country. And I am very careful not to get involved in current political debates. But I do worry when instead of people thinking about how can we extend an embrace to the people who paid so much for our constitution, for our freedom, people speak about how easy it is to cross the borders. And it's a matter of me now, just speaking as Albie, whose life was saved by Mozambican doctors. So it wasn't only I got my courage back, I got my life back. I was dying. It was Mozambican journalist who drove me to the hospital. It was a Mozambican doctor, Ivagorido, who saved my life. So I got my courage back, I got my life back. But I say that for me, but I could be in a sense speaking for South Africa. And seeing this book today and reading those little statements by Samora Machel, you speak about somebody's words being timeless. Just look at those words. If I can ask you, Vern, I'm not going to choose any words now. We'll just open to any page in the middle. The land belongs to the people. The land was liberated by the people. Only the house we built on the land belongs to us and is our property. If I build an apartment block, please ask me, Samora, where did you get the money? Well, these are questions for today. But just don't go away. Can you show that last picture? Can you see the guy in front of the plane? You know those pictures of hunters? They have a picture of the carcass. They stand there with the gun. This is a South African recce right in front of that plane, with a look of triumph on his face. A look of triumph on his face. Killing this wonderful, wonderful son of Africa. Triumph on his face. And yet when I look at that, I say he failed. He killed Samora, South Africa was liberated. There are new struggles in South Africa today, but we got our freedom and we got the right to change, to bring about changes in our own country. And it's the people like him who are now the people who are totally out of sync with what's happening. The arrogance, the power, the assumptions have all gone. And if you could just end with one nice picture of Samora smiling. I still remember him holding up his hands and saying, there are no miracles. Your hands are the miracles. It's only with our hands that we'll build miracles. It's the contribution of everybody that brings about miracles. I just see the hand over there. I could go on and on and on. I don't want to get involved in too much Samora nostalgia, but I would like to say that these words ring true today. It's wonderful that young South Africans are reading Frans Fanon. It's wonderful. We were reading Frans Fanon. It's wonderful they're reading Thomas Sankara. It's wonderful. But we have a hero right next door, Samora Machel. read about Samora, learn about Samora, get this book. It's got beautiful pictures about a very beautiful person, and you'll find something that will give you energy and strength and humanity and understanding for your struggles in South Africa to deal with the problems that we have in South Africa today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justice Sachs. Listening to you, I am reminded how privileged and honored we are as a generation to have people like you that have deep and direct connections with the past. It is our responsibility to draw from your deep repository of knowledge and experience while we have the opportunity. Thank you once again. Now it is my great honor and privilege to invite Mom Machel to the podium. She was a freedom fighter many years ago, but continues to fight for the liberation of humanity today. She has been a partner to two of Africa's greatest leaders, but is a great leader in her own right. I have no doubt that she will truly inspire us tonight. Mrs. Graca Machel.
Good evening. I don't think it will be right for me to speak after Ahmed. Don't you agree? That we just need to have time to absorb and then to reflect and go back to our own places where we live and where we work and say, how do we connect with our history, which is still so vivid in our days' lives. But I wanted to begin by, in a very African way, call in the spirit of Samora himself, recognizing my daughter, Susanna. And through her, he could recognize also Samora Machel. But I want to recognize the families of our leaders and stalwarts who are present here, because then I'm bringing in Tatu Susudi, I'm bringing in my brother Tambo, I'm bringing in a brother I didn't meet, but he is an inspiration to me, the Manokwe. I'm calling in this room also Marcelin dos Santos, who is not very well known to us, but to many South Africans. But all those who engage with the liberation of our continent, they will know that he has never become a president, he has never become a commander-in-chief, even during the struggle. But he is one of those who, across the continent, Marcelin dos Santos is still alive, but it's a hero of our struggle, and his daughter is here with us tonight. I'd like to bring them in the spirit of what perhaps two young generations are not aware of. The very first camp, training camp in Tanzania, called Kongwa, which the government of Tanzania under President Nyerere has put a space for the liberation movements, all the liberation movements of this region of Southern Africa were represented. And they trained, they prepared themselves politically and militarily to fight for our freedom as one single family. And for many of our young people, this is not a history they know about. That Kongwa was the place where all of us as liberation movements, you name it, I mean, it's South Africa, it's Angola, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Namibia, and even from the other coast of the continent, which was at the time the PGC in Guinea, they were all in one place. So when we celebrate freedom, or when we celebrate also the fall of our heroes, it is in our blood. It's not only an emotional thing, it is in our blood. So remembering, as Selo was saying, it's also sharing that history with the young generations. Let me also say something which struck me recently. I knew, but it came to my mind very clear. I don't know what is with the October month. Some of you may not have heard of Maurice Bishop, who was revolutionary in other parts of the world, but of our own kin. He died, he was killed, he was assassinated on the 19th of October, 1985. So a year before. And then 19 October 86, Samora was assassinated a year later. And then in the 15th of October 87, Thomas Sankara was killed. In simply 3 years, 3 of the giants of the liberation of this continent and of the African people in diaspora, in the case of Maurice Bishop, they were assassinated. And I'm putting clearly, they were assassinated. And this takes me back also to think of Lumumba. He was assassinated. And I'm asking, and it's important for us to ask, why these leaders were assassinated? They didn't die of a natural death. Because they symbolize the tallest way of breaking, absolutely breaking with, not only with colonialism, but with the neo-colonialism. Read the history, you'll understand what I'm trying to say. And part of this book will also give you a glimpse of why Samora, in the words of Albie, at a certain point he became the enemy to be destroyed physically. When ideas, when values, when principles of how to organize society could not be destroyed by the South African regime at the time, in their very short-sighted way, they thought killing him, it was the way of destroying, you know, what he represented for the peoples of our continent. So killing him, killing Sankara, killing Lumumba, killing Maurice Bishop, it is part of the whole system of those who are weak, those who cannot make their values and principles to last. They believe the only way is to eliminate physically those who are the best representatives. So we're here, as in many ways we have been doing in recent times. It is not about Samora alone as a person. It's quite rightly, as Albie presented us. When you read this book, you'll identify yourselves with the struggles of today in this country, on this continent. So it's about the ideals which Samora represents. It's about the ideals which his colleagues I mentioned here, they represent. What is the responsibility then? Is that yes, some of us who are still alive can tell the stories to make them much more close to us, much more human, so that it's not only principles and values. But because you young people, you have the ability better than we did in the past, please take this as the legacy they hand over to you, to say, understand your society today. Take the tools which have been used before. They can be used today and tomorrow, but to achieve the same goal, absolutely the same goal, which is the freedom of African people. At the end, which means the freedom of all people of the world. And that is the legacy which, in very simple way, some of the quotes you'll find here are giving you just a reference that, yes, they started, but as Madiba would say, now it is in your hands to take it further. I would like really to thank Andre for taking up in a very short period of time, the responsibility to put this book in the hands of South African society. I have to say that the heart of it and how to make it available, it has to be made available to South Africa. Albie was the driver. Alf's Gomes was the one to say, I'll build the bridge from the Mozambican perspective to South African space. Yes, I'll be the one to facilitate. And Ilundi, as a young girl at the time, and now a young lady who is Mozambican, also helped and worked with the translations and all that. So I want to thank really those who made the book available to South African public. And what I was saying outside is that this is simply a glimpse of who Samora is, just a glimpse, perhaps to entice our interest and our appetite to know even more about him, about his thinking, about how he can empower us in our struggles today and the struggles of tomorrow. I'd like to show one picture. It is, I don't know, this has no numbers, so I don't know. Those who have the book, and if you can see, you see here, this is Oliver Tambo and Samora. Exactly at the same central place where this picture is showing. When South Africa, the South African regime attacked, it was the very southern part of Mozambique, and then the Mozambican liberation soldiers, they retaliated, and they managed to get some of the corpses to prove who had attacked Mozambique. And they had been painted in black to look like they were black people, but they were all of other races. Anyway, Samora convened a meeting in a place like this, and Oliver was asked to come. The two of them explaining exactly why Mozambique is being attacked the way it is being attacked. I wish it is in this book. Part of what he said at that time is that we are not attacked because they had started with the discourse of that Mozambique has sophisticated weapons. And he dismantled the idea of a sophisticated weapon and said, you know, our sophisticated weapon is that we are anti-racist society, and exactly at the door of a system which defines itself on the basis of race. And yes, we are, in that sense, we are sophisticated. But then, in the long of a discussion, said, but you know, take the time it will take. South Africa will be free. And South Africa will be a society of all races. And South Africans and Mozambican, we are one. And he said, we are 35 million of us. At the time, the population of the two countries was 35 million. So there's the 35 million picture of Mozambique and South Africa together to say we will be free, and our sophisticated weapon, it will be anti-racist society. And if you look again to one of the quotes, he would say, racism, whether it's by whites towards blacks or by blacks towards whites, is one of the most degrading and humiliating forms of the system of exploitation of man by man. And of course, he also said, but for us, racism, it's twin brothers. Tribalism and regionalism are real crimes against humanity. What does it mean today in our own society? We are still looking at one another. I'm saying South Africa, at one another, because the whites, even capitalism is capitalism. But there are those who are saying that capitalism is white capitalist in this country. So we have, to draw from those lessons. And we do also in our society, yes, those who define themselves because they are Zulus, because they are Xhosas, because it's very alive in the minds of certain people. And in those days already, he was telling racism, whether it's, and it has two twin brothers, racism, tribalism, and regionalism. He is still with us in his thinking. And as there is one of the mottos in Mozambique when he was, they were laying him to rest, they say, Samora lives in each one of us. Thank you so much.
Obrigado, Ma'am. It is indeed important for young people like myself to be introduced to a multiplicity of African leaders that contributed to our liberation as a people. With that said, we cannot conclude tonight's proceedings without offering Alves Gomez, who is the photo collection keeper of Kok Nam, an opportunity to say a few words. He's also a counselor at the Samora Machel Center for Studies and the executive editor of both editions of the Samora Machel by Kok album. As a journalist, he covered numerous events and trips of President Samora Machel, of whom he became a trusted source of advice in matters of Southern Africa with special focus on Zimbabwean politics. Alves Gomez.
Thank you very much. I'm taken by this opportunity, by this event, because I am, as a journalist, I should not be saying so, but I am a son and a great admirer of Samora Machel. And first time I met him was on the 1st of May, 1975, the very day the Americans were expelled from Vietnam. And I met him in Congo, Tanzania. And we were there, first time that we spoke, and he said a very odd thing for us. He said, we are not independent yet. And we were about to become independent in 2 months. This was the 1st of May. We were due to become independent on the 25th of June, 75. And he said, no, we shall not feel independent before the South Africans end the apartheid and conquer their freedom. And we had lunch, and immediately after lunch, he called us to introduce us to Nkonto Esizwe guerrillas in Congo. He said, now it's your task to take our struggle into your country. Liberate your country, because before your country is liberated, we cannot feel free. And after that, I had the opportunity of following the Zimbabwean independence. And some people said, no, Mozambique and Frelimo shall concentrate on, attacking South Africa, attacking the South African apartheid regime and so on. And said, no. First, let's go to free Rhodesia from the minority regime of Ian Smith, because we have to go by steps. And that is why Samora was a dangerous, very dangerous weapon. And that is that weapon that I thought it was necessary to pass it on to other generations, young generations, not just of Mozambique, but especially to our special neighbors, Zimbabwe and South Africa. And that's why I'm so happy to be at the Nelson Mandela Foundation with the support of the Kathrada Foundation and presenting and be present at the launching of this book. Let me just quickly, Mama gave the basics of the story. Kok Nam had all these beautiful pictures, and he always had in mind to make an album, and unfortunately died 6 years ago. And he passed on to me that burden of making the album. And I said, no, I cannot make the album without Samora, in it. It cannot just be the pictures. And the second thing that it took me to as an obligation of making this album was that, Samora was so easy. Samora was a person that did not like to make long speeches, long sentences. It was straightforward. And so I went investigating, looking for straightforward sentences, ideological sentences. That's a lot of what's missing nowadays, is ideology. Ideology is very important. Our ideas, confrontation of ideas, what's wrong, what's right. And that is what I believe, reading these sentences of Samora, our younger generations can learn how to discuss. Because some of these sentences, just one can be the basis for a long, long discussion. Being it on economics, being it on matters of racialism, being it matters of women emancipation, and so on. There's a lot. It's small sentences, but with a very deep ideological meaning. And having said that, I could not leave this tribune without saying thank you, Albi, because I was looking for Albi for the past 2 years, and I met Iludi, whose mom is here. Pamela dos Santos is a South African born. She's South African born, married to Marcelino dos Santos that Mama Graca spoke of. She was my colleague at Information, and she was liberated by the Mozambicans, and then she came here to liberate herself as well. She was part of the struggle of ANC before joining the struggle of Frelimo and of Mozambique. So it's an icon that you have got in your room. But having said that, I was, I knew that I must get hold of Albi, because Albi will understand, because Albi knows how to, he can read Portuguese, and he knows Samora, and he knows. So when I spoke to Albi via Skype, because Albi is an old generation person that refuses to go on these social things like WhatsApp. I'm also against it, and I admire him for that. So, but he uses Skype because he can see the faces. So when we saw our faces, he said, but show me, I have not seen the book. So I showed him the book over the camera of the Skype, and I said, yes, it's in there. Oh, send it to me. So a few days after, Ilundi sent him the book to Cape Town from Joburg. Albi loved it, and he knew André, and from that moment, that was the 20th of May this year, and from that, the 20th of May, in Westport, we had the book printed by the 1st of September, and we did the pre-launching on the 29th of September. So it's possible. We say it's possible. É possível. So thank you very much. And thank you very much, Vern and the Kathrada Foundation, to allow us to come to free South Africa. Now, I feel happy and proud that Samora, wherever you are, I'm in Joburg, introducing Joburg. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alves, for the thoughtful contribution and the role that you played in having this book compiled today and carrying forward the dream of Kok Nam. Finally, to offer closing reflection and give a vote of thanks, I welcome to the podium Mr. Shan Bolton, CEO of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation.
Good evening, everybody. Closing remarks, it's a huge task, especially after everybody has spoken. So my essential thing is to thank all of you for being here, and hope that you will go and buy the book. And not only take one, but take 2 copies. The chairperson of our foundation, Derek Hancock, signed off on an approval for the foundation to support an action that will be led by Lawyers for Human Rights to the IEC. Lawyers for Human Rights and a range of organizations is calling on the IEC to consider revoking the participation of a new political formation who is now a registered political party called the African Basic Movement. Now when you look at the foundational principles of this political party, it says it's to change the country to a kingdom state. This will allow the traditional leaders to have access in playing meaningful role in the running of the country. It strongly believes that the influx of foreign nationals that are scattered in this country is causing lots of problems and difficulties and creating many challenges around issues of safety and security and so forth, and they go along. Now, this would be the first political party who will contest elections on a platform that is now global. We cannot allow it to happen in this country. We cannot. And that is why we are endorsing the call for lawyers for human rights and a range of other organizations. But it's not only this movement. If one looks at the platform that the DA has put out, it's moving in the same direction. Not that there are many within the governing party who have not uttered very similar sentiments. So we have a huge problem. I so wish that Albie's speech here today was one that had gone into every household and into every school to have listened to tonight. Because then this nonsensical ideas would never find traction in this country. Unfortunately, it is gaining ground. We do need to strengthen our approaches, our campaign and visibility around growing xenophobia in this country. It will become a feature in the election campaign, and somehow those of us who are able to persuade parties around their election platform must begin to do that before it is too late. And if we do that kind of work, I think we do justice to the intention of this publication and to the legacy and memory of somebody like Samora Machel. We are so happy that we were able to be part of this. Although Vern and the foundation did the bulk of the work, we are just happy to have been associated with it. Thank you very much to everybody who made this possible.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton. It remains for me to thank you all once again for attending this event. We have refreshments downstairs, so please do stay and socialize downstairs. Before I close, two things. For those of you that have not bought the book as yet, please do so. It's for sale outside for 200 rand, not the 500 rand that is at the drugstore. And then, on a personal note, I think that opportunities such as this should not be taken lightly. A book such as this offers us the unique opportunity to learn and critically reflect, and as Mam Machel would say, to start reimagining a future that is well aware of its past. I thank you.
No,